Garrett Underwood. Today's guest is a young social entrepreneur and nonprofit leader who works with youth experiencing homelessness to change their lives by telling their stories. His social enterprise, Save a Penny, helps them create and market jewelry connected to their personal stories. He'll also share insights about his superpower. I'm your host, Devin Thorpe. Welcome to the Superpowers for Good show. Garrett, thanks for joining me for this conversation. It's a thrill to meet you.
It's a thrill to be on the show. Thank you so much for having me.
You're kind. So, Garrett, you have really, in your relatively young life, done a lot in charitable stuff, in nonprofit work, helping people. Tell us a little bit about your story.
Of course. But to answer your question, it's been a long journey. I started way back in 2012. Started a faith-based clothing company where what we did is for every purchase, we gave away a hygiene package to someone in need on Skid Row or different homeless shelters. And then it kind of evolved into an employment program where I started Save a Penny, which is a way for individuals to share their story through jewelry making and employment at the same time. And then, so now we have that particular company as well as the Seed House Project, which is a housing program for at-risk youth. So we provide housing for youth that are experiencing homelessness. And we also provide the employment piece too under one roof. So it's a pretty awesome program that we have going on. But it's definitely been a lot of, plug and play of learning how to move and navigate in the nonprofit sector, especially from going from creating a business and knowing how to build profit to going to a nonprofit where you have to look for, foundations and donors and different things like that. It was a huge learning curve for me because I like to work for any funds that I end up receiving. So that's why I ended up developing the employment program, because it's a way to kind of give one, but also receive at the same time. So it's an interesting journey.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit of, I want to dig a little deeper into that because I'm intrigued by what you're doing with the pennies. You're literally taking pennies and they're becoming instruments for change. Tell us how that works.
Yeah, so it was actually a concept that one of our youth kind of developed. We picked up a penny one day and we realized that a lot of people just walk past this penny. We literally watched so many people walk past this penny and not even think to pick it up. And as I'm talking to this youth, he's experiencing homelessness and he's basically saying, I'm basically the same thing as that penny. Nobody knows that I'm homeless. We're walking past each other all the time. But the value that I feel, it feels like that penny, and so I talked to him and kind of thought about different ideas of how can we make this penny valuable. And I realized that stories are the most valuable piece of everything. And so if we can help others turn their traumas or their different experiences, similar to what you're doing on this podcast, and turn it into, a story that inspires other people, then the penny is worth so much more because now this penny has a story attached to it. And so what we do is we go to different programs, different shelters, and have each youth, engrave their name inside the penny. But along with that, the necklace is attached with a story. So they have a little story that they share on the necklace. We also have candles that they make. So they make candles and they put the penny at the bottom of the candle. So when you finish the candle, you can find out who made the penny along with their story. And so they also go through this extensive entrepreneurship program to teach them how to, really build out their story and turn it into a nonprofit that helps other people, or a for cause or for profit, whatever it looks like. But we don't realize that some of the traumas that we go through are the biggest nuggets that we can use to really impact the world. And so my purpose and my journey is really helping others to take that thing that nobody thinks is a good experience and turn it into something magical that inspires so many other people.
Yeah. So I don't want to lose the thread here, but you're actually using the penny to make some jewelry, right, and sell it, right? Isn't that
Correct.
part of the program?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about the jewelry you make with the penny.
Yeah, so I mean, it's more of you can check it out on our website. It's shop save a penny .org, but each penny has their name engraved in it, our initials, and then it has a capsule that's attached to it, and kind of like a message in a bottle type of build out, but inside the capsule, it's a rolled up story of that individual that just wants to share a little piece of their story. So we have youth that have went through, molestation or just been through the foster care system, and they're just basically, vulnerably sharing it to inspire someone else that might have went through the same thing, but is more so hiding that piece of them. And so all the proceeds is just to create employment and house, youth that are experiencing homelessness. But it's just, like I said, it's just a way for them to express their story and not necessarily hide it, because I think that's where the big trauma comes into play, is when we hide what we experience and not necessarily share it.
Yeah. How many are you helping today?
So we've been able to employ over 98 youth in the past within the first year. So right now it's
Fantastic.
pretty much ranging around that amount as well. So
That's great. That's great. So, as part of this work you're doing, and as sort of a common thread in the work you've done in the nonprofit space, you've done a lot of storytelling, and you've talked a little bit about that already. But uh, tell us a little bit more about how we can be better storytellers.
oh, I love that question. I think it's one, really understanding your internal truth. I think a lot of people kind of go through life and not really experiencing and finding out their truth. We go through life kind of going by everyone else's expectation. I'm a person that did the same thing. I went to school for kinesiology, graduated, was not what I wanted to do at all. But everyone was saying, "Hey, go for this job because you're going to make a certain amount of money." And so I did that, And so many people get wrapped up in that chain of expectations. And so a part of my curriculum with the program that I have, which is a 90-day program to transition your story into a nonprofit or a social cause, is really digging deep into finding out what your truth is. So we go through so many different assessments, from Myers-Briggs to creative expression to even your flow state chart, your human design, all these different things to really break out what do you actually like, not all these different covers of things that people expect you to be, but what do you really care about? And so we dive into that. We break down that piece as well. And then a part of, going through the storytelling is really finding out the pinpoints in your life that changed you drastically, that made you who you are today. So whatever that pinpoint is, that is your story. So if it's something, maybe something happened with your parents or something good happened in your life, that's going to be a piece of your story. And so a part of your story is of building out a great story is following the rubric of, a lot of storytellers, and Pixar does this a lot, is, expressing the storyteller, the character, their surroundings and different things like that, and then diving into a problem or issue, and then going into what is the solution. And so in our tools, we have a whole breakdown of what that looks like for someone, and it's free on our website for them to download and whatnot. But it's really important to know who you are to really find out what your story is, because that's the hardest part with anybody that I coach. They have a hard
Yeah.
time finding out who they are.
Let's come back now to that 5-step free tool that you've got. Tell us a little bit about what that involves.
Yeah, so it's an assessment. So, like I said, we have a bunch of different assessments that we refer you to. After that, it's more of finding out the necessary steps to kind of express your story. So, one of the things that we go through is a breakdown of the storytelling of how you actually build out your story. The other part is assessing the need. So looking at all the other organizations and different programs, what is out there? Are you creating something that's already there, or are you creating something that's new? Um, and then you build out, what is your niche? What's going to be your niche? Because there's so many organizations that have something similar to maybe what you're doing, but how do you bring out the niche that makes you different? And then lastly is really the biggest piece, is how do you fund this program? How do you build out the funding? And so we have a whole roadmap map of the funding map of how to fund your actual program and get things started.
That's fantastic. Well, Garrett, you've done a lot. I'm very impressed with the work that you've done, and you've done some of the difficult work, right? Working closely with people in our homeless community. They're our friends, they're our family, and we don't do enough for them as a society. So I honor and respect you for doing some of that difficult work.
Thank you.
Um, what do you see as your superpower?
I love that question. You always ask this in your interviews. I think my superpower power is finding what matters for that person, finding creating a a purpose for other people, a purpose bigger than themselves. I think we get so attached to, and I talked about my journey going to school for kinesiology, and we know that sometimes these purpose that we go after isn't really for ourselves. It's for ourselves, but it's not bigger than ourselves. When you dive into something bigger than yourself, you're tapping into a mission. And my goal is to teach others to find their mission, because I think that's what brings longevity as a person. You don't have time to feel emotions when you're feeling a certain day, a certain way, a certain day. You know that these emotions are is minimal compared to what you have to do. If I think about my emotions a lot, and don't get me wrong, emotions are great to kind of guide you, but in certain points, it's a distraction. It's fear. But if it's something bigger than you, you're willing to conquer those fears. And so my goal and my superpower is helping people to find that mission for themselves.
Yeah, well, that's a powerful mission. Uh, how do you do it? What are some of the steps you use to help people find their mission?
Um, So one is really diving into that assessment, really trying to understand yourself and how what matters to you. One of the assessments that I really love is worldview. So we do a worldviews assessment. So how do you look at the world? Are there political aspects that you may not like? We also dive into a timeline. So we basically sit down with the client and go over a timeline with their life. What are some things that you went through in your life, and how do we pinpoint and pull those things out to magnify your story? And then lastly, in the program that I have, accountability is a big thing. If you don't have anybody in your corner cheering you on to do these different things, it can get very overwhelming and hard to get to. And so you got to make sure you have that support system that keeps you accountable to the bigger picture. Because when you do something that's bigger than you, it's very scary, and sometimes you need somebody in your ear telling you you're the perfect person to do this because you had the story and you have the experience to do it.
Yeah, well, I think that is a profound observation. As you think about this uh, capacity for helping people find their mission, I suspect that there is a personal aspect that this grew out of, right? That at some point you felt like you had defined your own mission. Uh, can you tell us about that experience?
Um, the experience of finding my own mission.
Yeah.
I think for me it was really being able to put myself in very interesting positions to see what comes out. I like to dive into different things, and even if it's scary, I put myself in those situations. Um, the funny story that I do have is when I first started, the faith based clothing company, and started working out in Skid Row and going to these different places, I've never experienced, communicating as much with people that are experiencing homelessness. And so someone invited me out there to give food out and talk to people and pray for them. And that was really uncomfortable for me at the beginning because I've never done that. But I will say that when we put ourselves in those uncomfortable situations, it sparks something that's kind of magical where you feel a little bit different, and a connection with the cause or purpose. And I felt this connection with that person. And so I would say that, following your joy is really following those connections where you feel excited about doing something for someone. And my biggest thing in life is that we need to focus on how we can help others and not ourselves. So I always get geeked out about like how I can figure out a plan to help other people. So, yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, Garrett, I really appreciate you taking the time to visit with me today, and I'm thrilled to get to know you. Excited about your work. Before you go, tell us again how about your 5-step tool, where people can get that.
Yeah, so the 5-step tool is on it's freetools.saveapenny.org. So freetools.saveapenny.org. And then if you just want to support some of the youth that are making these different necklaces and you're interested in the different stories that are being put out, we do have a website where you can actually purchase these necklaces and candles, which is shopsaveapenny.org. So shopsaveapenny.org.
Great. And is there a way for people to connect with you on social media?
Yeah, I actually do the handheld for Save a Penny. So saveapenny.org is the Instagram and Facebook and all those different things.
Fantastic. Well, we'll look forward to connecting with you there. Garrett, thank you so much for the great work you're doing. We wish you every success, especially in helping those young people in Los Angeles who are struggling in homelessness to find a path out. We wish you all the success in that effort.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
All righty. Let's do some good. Thank you for tuning in to the Superpowers for Good show. Twice each week, we host changemakers who share their impact, insights, and superpowers. Don't miss another episode. Subscribe today at superpowersforgood.com. That's superpowers, 4, good.com. Be super empowered. Get your copy of the book, Superpowers for Good, as an ebook, audiobook, paperback, or hardcover edition via your favorite online retailer. Interested in having me speak to your company, organization, or association? Visit devinthorpe.com. Then let's talk. Now, keep using your superpowers for good. Together, we can reverse climate change, improve global health, and eradicate poverty.